Hi everyone, I'm Omar. I'm the Chief Llama Officer at huggingface. So my role at huggingface is leading all of the collaborations with many companies, many research groups. When they want to release a model, they come to us for help to make the models as accessible as possible to the community. So my goal with today's talk is to share a bit of what happens under the hood. So yeah, I'll talk a bit about the journey of releasing a new model. So you might think it's quite easy. Usually it begins with a company, again, a research lab, let's say Google wants to release a new model. They come to us and they say, hey, we want to release a new model, Lemma, and we want to make it easy to use and fine-tune and train by the community. So usually there are many issues that can happen. Usually adding the license, that's easy. The model architecture, that's kind of easy. Tokenization, it begins to be a bit hard. As Charles was mentioning, tokenization sucks. And chat templates, I'll talk a bit more about them later, but these are quite painful. So this is kind of a somewhat internal list of how to add a new model. So first of all, you go and you understand what's the model architecture. Most of the models are pretty much Llama-like. So if you want to add a new text generation model, usually it's very similar architecture to Llama with some adaptations. Then you need to, no, let me skip that one, set a debugging environment of the original library. So let's say Meta has their own library to run inference with Llama. So you need to set up an environment with that. You need to run their model. Then you kind of set up your own transformers environment. You need to add the model. You need to convert the tokenizer to the transformers format. And then you need to compare side by side, right? And here, that means that you need to compare that the logits are exactly the same, that the tokens being generated are exactly the same. For instruct models, usually there is a chat template, right? So if you have different format, a new line, something like that, that will break things. So you need to make sure that you are being exactly the same as the original implementation. So you need to be exactly the same as how the original instruct models were trained. So Transformers wants to make things as consistent as possible. It has its own philosophy, so you need to follow all of that. You need to add tests, you need to add documentation. You need to upload the models to the hub, so you can share that with the community. You usually evaluate the models as well, so we have the LLM leaderboard, if you know that. We try to run those before model releases sometimes when we work with partners. And we work very closely with many people in the community, so Unsloth, Axolotl, BLLM, many people from the community that also are trying to run these models. They help find bugs, that kind of stuff. So let's go back to the first topic, licenses. So here at the left, you can see the implementation of a part of the code of Llama, of the original code base. And you will see that they have a very specific license. They have a I don't know, meta copyright license. And people don't notice this. You cannot just go take this code and add it to your code base without attribution, right? So here at the right, you can see an unnamed library that has 30,000 stars in GitHub that doesn't add this attribution, and it's pretty much the same code. I won't give the names, but this happens quite often. It's not just a single library. Then the code implementation, the model architecture, it tends to be easy, but it can be quite tricky. So for example, if you don't follow Daniel Han from Unsloth in Twitter, you should. He does very cool deep dives into model architectures, and he finds, for example, mismatches between the implementation of DeepMind in JAX, the implementation of Keras by Google, and the implementation of huggingface with PyTorch. And he looks very closely at things, and for example, even this difference of precision between two different implementations can lead to massive differences at the end. Now, chat templates. If you have used a chat template, instruct model in the past, there's a very specific way in which you need to run these models. That means that, for example, if you add an extra space somewhere, like just an extra space, that might change the evaluation metrics, right? That might lead to the model generating gibberish text. That might lead to the model being extremely verbose. So working with the partners, working with open source contributors to make sure that the way we are running the model is exactly the same as the data being used for instruct tuning is very important. Now, evaluation is one of the largest unsolved topics in the ML ecosystem. So there is the LLM leaderboard. It's nice. It has many issues. There is no transparency for many models in what was the data that was used to train these models. And for example, there are models that are using instruct data on the pre-training, which usually leads to inflated IF-eval, which is IF-eval is a very popular benchmark for instruct chat capabilities. But if you start to use IF-eval for pre-trained models, some models that had this kind of data in the pre-training data will perform extremely well. At the end, what matters would be like people actually trying out the models, but there are many issues with LMCs as well. And you can go to Reddit, and there is a local Llama community, and you can do like Reddit vibe checking. That helps a bit, but that's also not, of course, something that you can scale. Transformers is a bit complex. So we have a team member called Arthur. Arthur is the core maintainer of Transformers, and he kind of adds all of these new models. Of course, it's not just him. There's a large team in the Hugging Face Transformers team working in adding these models. But we are really trying to make it as easy and painless for the community as we can. But of course, it's not just us. There's a huge ecosystem around this. There is the random people in Reddit. There are random anime characters that are in this room as well. There is Axolotl, Unsloth, VLLM, and also many companies, many cloud providers. Everyone wants to make the models as easy to run. So it's kind of a huge community effort. So each time there's one of these huge new models, for example, when Llama 3 came out, there are many people that are involved. It's not just one or two persons. It's dozens or hundreds of people across the ecosystem that are working in making this accessible to the community. And yeah, it's not just the models, right? Once the transformer models go out, then people want to run them on device, so then people go to Llama CPP, they try to export to GGUF, they go to Llama. So it's quite a large community effort. Each open source release is quite unique. We have collaborated with people like Mistral, Cohere, Meta, Nose Research, of course, research labs at different universities. And each release is quite unique. Each release is quite chaotic. We have done a few hundred releases in the last 2 years. All of them are chaotic. There's no exception for this. But the nice thing is that once they go out, you can kind of chill a bit most of the time, except when they might not be so nicely licensed. So yeah, that was pretty much my talk. My goal was to put as many memes as I could. I hope you enjoyed this, and yeah, go open source.